Recorded at an undisclosed location known only as the Homestead. You've tuned into Ever Vigilant. Our mission? To encourage and challenge men to prepare, defend, and lead at home and in their communities.
The English judge and jurist Sir Edward Coke had this to say in 1604 in regards to a home being a man's castle, that the house of everyone is to him as his castle and fortress, as well as defense against injury and violence. As for his repose, and although the life of a man is precious and favored in law, so that although a man kill another in his defense, or kill one by misfortune, without any intent, yet it is a felony, and in such case he shall forfeit his goods for the great regard which the law hath of a man's life. But if thieves come to a man's house to rob him or murder, and the owner or his servants kill any of the thieves in defense of himself and his house, it is no felony, and he shall lose nothing. Every one may assemble his friends or neighbors to defend his house against violence, but he cannot assemble them to go with him to the market or elsewhere to keep from violence. And the reason of the same is, everyone's house is his safest refuge, every man's home is his castle. So those thoughts were from a ruling by Sir Edward Coke a long time ago, and kind of encompass the legal thoughts around our home being our castle. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum and hit a more literary thoughts on house and home in this classic poem, My Four Walls by Thomas Carlyle. The storm and night are on the waste, while through the wind the herdsman calls, as fast on willing nag I haste, home to my four walls. Black tossing clouds and scarce a glimmer envelope earth like sevenfold palls, but wifekin watches, coffee pot doth simmer, home in my four walls. A home and wife I too have got, a hearth ablaze, whatever befalls, what needs a man that I have not within my own four walls. King George has palaces of pride, and armed grooms must ward his halls. With one stout bolt I safe abide within my own four walls. Not all his men may sever this, it yields to friends, not monarchs' calls. My whinstone house my castle is, I have my own four walls. When fools or knaves do make a rout, with gigman dinners, balls, and cabals, I turn my back and shut them out. These are my own four walls. De Moorland House, though rude it be, may stand the brunt when prouder falls. 'Twill screen my wife, my books, and me, all in my own four walls. My name is Joe Prim, and I am the host of this podcast, Ever Vigilant, and my mission with this podcast is to challenge and encourage men to prepare, defend, and lead. That is why I take the time out to record this podcast, to prepare this podcast, how I can have a positive impact. This podcast was kind of thrown together last minute. Usually throughout the week, I kind of begin to work through what I would like to do for a podcast topic, and then I kind of work it throughout the week. And by the end of the week, I have a pretty solid idea of what I want to do. I throw my outline together on Friday night or Saturday night and go ahead and record on Sunday. This week it began, I was sure that I wanted to do a podcast on ego and the battle that most of us don't even realize that we fight on a daily basis with ego. Then last night I spent my time outlining the episode, and it turned into being about pursuing excellence in everything that we do. That is our obligation as men to, in everything that we do, pursue excellence. Both of those topics were thrown on the back burner this morning when, because of this quarantine, I was preparing for doing church at home with my family, with my two kids and my wife, and realized that the things that I wanted to talk about with them, the topics I needed and felt like needed to be talked through with them, were probably topics that you guys that are listening to this podcast are also dealing with, as we're dealing with a pandemic, the chaos that has brought onto each of our doorsteps. This is affecting each and every one of us in a much different way, but also in a different way than most of us have been affected in the past, especially as a group, as a country, as a world, as a people. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago about our responsibility to prepare, and this episode is going to be about our responsibility to defend. We, as men, as head of a household, have the responsibility to defend our castle. But for me, this is not just our obligation to physically defend our castle, as Edward Cook laid out, but also our necessity to build a sanctuary of peace and calm from the storms and the zombie hordes that are outside of the walls of our castle. If you don't have a way to defend your family physically, to protect them, to protect what's yours, that's something that you should go about fixing right away. It should be one of your top priorities. But I'm going to swing this topic around into a little bit different direction. And that is our necessity to maintain discipline, order, and trust within the four walls of our home, and to create an atmosphere where vulnerability is treasured, where honesty is expected, where failure is acceptable, where challenges are encouraged, and where unconditional love is demonstrated. I'm talking about building a sanctuary, a place of safety amidst the storm that's on the outside. Because there's always a storm on the outside. There's always something going on the outside. Not always as big of an impact right now as what this pandemic, this coronavirus is causing us. But there's always something going on the outside. And we need to separate the outside from the inside when it comes to our home, our castle. So how do we do this? How do we create a sanctuary? How do we create a place of safety? This is really going to depend on where you are at in your life. Your kids might be younger than mine. Your kids may be older than mine. You might be in a position where you don't have any children yet, or maybe you have an infant. Maybe you're taking care of your parents. Or maybe you're just single and you have a girlfriend or a wife or a fiance that is now your responsibility. Number one, you need to take your responsibility seriously. Number two, you need to evaluate yourself and where you're at so that you can be assertive and calm and confident in a way that can influence those that you care about. You need to be able to talk to those that you are responsible for about your plans and about your contingencies. This will build security and trust with your wife and your children. They will know that there's a plan. They will know that you are thinking things through. And this in turn will give them comfort. You need to delegate responsibilities. It's been really easy during this time of quarantine and messed up schedules to let things get chaotic and lazy. In pajama pants at noon still. Eating and snacking on what we want. It's very important to maintain discipline at this time. But by delegating responsibilities, new responsibilities even, than the normal ones that we've had in the past, but by delegating responsibilities, you give your children purpose. If we had the football team lined up and we had specific play for the tight ends and routes for the wide receivers to run, but you had one wide receiver that you just didn't give a play to or didn't give a route to, would he have any purpose? But by giving him that button hook or that fly route, you give him purpose. We all need to know what role we fit into where we are at. Important to give responsibilities to your children, to give them purpose. You need to test them, to challenge them, and to encourage them. This will build confidence. Since my children were young, I have always challenged them. And this is how we've gotten over a lot of the hurdles, like the light on at bedtime, or the accidents and wearing diapers at night, or not getting chores done. By challenging them and testing them in those things and encouraging them that although they aren't certain that they can clear that hurdle, I am. And this in turn builds confidence. Intentional time. Some of you are off of work. You're home right now. You have a lot of time, a lot of free time, more free time than you can ever have imagined having. Use that time. Read, talk, play games, go on walks. This shows love. Remember that just going through this difficult time where apparently some people don't have toilet paper, which is really rough, this will create character and grit in your kids, in your family. It's also important that you allow them time to express their concerns and their fears, and this will build trust with them. So I'm going to run through these again real quick. Explain your plans and contingencies. This will build security and trust. Delegate responsibilities. This will create purpose. Test them, challenge them, and encourage them. This will build confidence. Spend intentional time talking, reading to them, playing games, going for walks. This will show them love. Difficult times create character and grit. Allowing time for them to share their concerns and their fears and actively listening will create trust. It is your responsibility to show them calm and confident and to hold yourself to the standard of discipline, order, and in building trust with them. If you use this time as a leader to build and strengthen your family unit for your life ahead, leverage this opportunity as a time of chaos on the outside to build confidence in you, God, and in your family. Leverage this time of less activities in sports to encourage and strengthen your relationships. And when this quarantine is over and we attempt to sort out the consequences of what has happened, that the effect of what truly matters will be a net positive, and that those you care about will look back at this time as a new beginning. Stay healthy and fight for those that you love. If you'd like to help push this mission forward, patreon.com/evervigilant. For gear, great articles, and the full archives of this podcast, go to vigilantwolf.com. You can follow me on Instagram @TheEverVigilant. If you have any questions, thoughts, you can always direct message me there. Hold fast, men, and God bless.
For the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack.